so much in the like kind of race to the bottom for all these jean manufacturers to have the cheapest prices and the most cuts. There's been huge ethical violations of labor, just like using there's like child labor being used because these companies outsource it to one factory and then outsources it to another, and they just like the total supply chain is kind of just it's opaque. You can't really look in. Additionally, there's like environmental costs. Water used for jean production, especially the washing thing, washing the jeans when they go through the sanforizing process, like that's like contaminates water supply, and they like a lot of like manufacturers dump that out. There's sandblasting of jeans. So I buy most of my jeans like dark like this, but if you're buying light wash pairs of jeans, especially ones that have different colors on the jeans, often like you kind of think of this as like a mechanical process, but it's like someone in a room with like a gun that shoots like sand at it, and like they often don't have like the protection for their like respiratory system, and like they face a lot of like problems with like lung health like later in life, just so that like these jeans can have this look. But there is kind of research into laser distressing jeans, ozone washing, which like kind of mitigate these environmental things. But definitely supply chain, I think, has been the biggest downfall of jeans in the 21st century.
I think in that context, I guess like right now, like America's role or status in this denim image, I guess, could be something related to ethical and like environmental like responsibility. Because like even though American brand wouldn't be as like prominent in the global market for like denim, but still there's like a lot of like high fashion American brands that are so influential like globally. And one funny thing is like I grew in a different country, like in America, and then after I came here, the brand that I associated with more like very big American was this brand called Reformation, because they were doing the sustainable, ethical production of jeans, and I kind of identified as, oh, this is like a Californian American identity that's like positively associates with American, like positive part of the American like initiative culture. And I think that could be like one way that American identity could grow into as a new identity in the industry.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of brands who are kind of tapping into the ethical consumption and American identity as part of their brand imaging. I think like some I can name off the top of my head is 316, which I think is based out of Los Angeles, kind of does a lot of reproduction cuts. Imogene and Willie, which is based out of Kentucky, also is doing kind of capitalizing on that same sense that, you know, of a different kind of Americana that's like rooted in like sustainability and fair labor practices and such.
Mm-hmm. I'm also struck by, and this is taking our discussion in a slightly different direction, the ways in which the attention, you know, think of jeans as the ultimate kind of mass-produced garment. Like, you know, there's just literally millions of them in circulation, and they have a very basic, similar, you know, you can talk about different cuts and styles, but they're pretty similar across the board. But yet, in this Japanese reproduction culture, this obsessive attention to craftsmanship, to the degree that makes it similar to couture. You know, that they're really thinking about like, okay, how do you craft this so that, how do you make changes to the fabric so that it's similar to in texture to these historic jeans? How do you make, what about putting a paint, you know, a swoosh on the back in paint, which is both an identifier of a kind of signature of the person who made the jeans. It's also kind of a reference to calligraphy in Japanese culture. Plus, it pulls in the kind of history for the jean connoisseur of here this moment when Levi's is making this shift from the functional to the aesthetic, where it's kind of aware that there's an aesthetic quality, that you need the arches in order for it to be labeled as jeans. So there's like all these, I don't know, just kind of like layering of ideas that get caught up in this. I don't really have a question in this, but it's just kind of fascinating to me that they become like couture objects in terms of the attention to craftsmanship, even as they're these mass-produced jeans.
Yeah, and actually, there's something about that like kind of reminded me. This you can kind of see the craftsmanship. Like these are a pair of jorts, but they were once like a pair of jeans.
When they were young, they were jeans. Then they grew up into shorts.
Yeah, and you can kind of see like there's huge production differences that come to brand identity that would just are so crazily small. It's just like insane that someone would go through this effort. Like this pair of jeans you see has like even though it's like faded, has a pretty even texture throughout. And this is because the mills that they use a high tension that keeps the fabric, the cotton threads super tight when it's going through. So you have this very nice even weft. Meanwhile, these jeans, which are produced on a super low tension mill, you can see like this fading pattern. They call this Takechi. I'm pretty bad at pronunciation. That like creates these like long strokes. Additionally, these are like a pair of Momotaro, which if you're familiar with Momotaro jeans, which if you're familiar with Japanese mythology, Momotaro is a peach boy, like a boy who's like born out of the peach. And so the stripe on here is like pink instead of like green or blue, kind of to connote like is like the peach-like nature of Momotaros.
And it also strikes me as like, you know, something that's similar to menswear too. That, you know, the suit is the uniform, it stays the same. But it's the sort of subtle shift in the size of the lapels, you know, how many buttons, these kind of small changes that overall it's the same. But yet, because of its continuity, it's these details that really matter to become, for those who want to become interested and passionate about it, the marker of this is a special kind of jean. This is a jean that is more than just a pair of pants, but instead is picking up and taking up and repeating and moving forward different historical ideas about what jeans and denim might be. Any other final questions? Do you have any final comments?
I did want to say, like, on that last note, I have made some of my best friends at Stanford here by, like, looking at their jeans and, like, identifying them. Just, like, I remember, like, I, like, spotted someone out in the crowd, and I just, like, went to them and was like, your jacket, like, capital, like, how did you get it? That's, like, a super rare one. And, like, then he introduced me to his son, became, like, one of my best friends here. And, like other times, like, I look at the selvage stitching, which is this right here, which I also have a tattoo of. And I, like, saw someone, I, like, knew there were 316 jeans, and I was like, hey, those are 316s, those are, like, you know, I was like, just like, you know, we geek out over it.
So jeans, the global connective tissue.
Yeah.
All right, thank you
so much.